one of the things that, like I know you run the identity proofing and governance business for Axiom. Very interesting business that you have. Now, my experience, especially running IT and now being a software vendor, is that a lot of the on-premise security sales and opportunities are absolutely driven from compliance initiatives. They're audit findings and things like that. So when you look at a different delivery model and people are procuring this stuff different, are you seeing that compliance and risk are still the primary driver for people procuring those solutions?
Yes, and the other, compliance definitely drives security. The other major thing we're hearing from customers is, how are you going to protect my digital intellectual property and my applications? So, in the offline world, it used to be, well, here's some software, download it, here's a key, great. Well, if I put it up in the cloud and I have one person take it and share it with 10 people, there's a fear that I'm going to have my intellectual property stolen. So how can you use identity solutions when people aren't present, or to do random verifications of like we did in the old world in the mainframes, to say who's on it, who shouldn't be on it. So compliance is, so protect my information, my intellectual property, and make sure I'm in compliance. Those are the major themes we're hearing from customers.
Right. You guys concur on that? Is that what you see as well, Curt? Like, is that a driver for a lot of people looking to go to a managed service offering with you versus trying to do something in-house?
So we're a provider of cloud services as well as a consumer.
Yeah.
So what we see is there's no one cloud is going to save the day. Nothing against my friends at Amazon. But not one cloud is going to do everything for everyone.
Right.
So as you start to grab those applications, right, then you have more identity, then you have your data that's in different locations, different levels of compliance. If it's sensitive data or ITAR data, it's probably not going to be in a public cloud, but if it's something that can be in a public cloud, you may be using multiple applications. That centralized identity across all of that and tracking it is one of those hurdles that doesn't seem too bad when you have one cloud provider.
Right.
But the ability to do that multi-cloud management, I think, is going to become more and more important over time.
Interesting, yes. Now, Steve, I know we leverage a lot of different services in the cloud. Like some of my development team that's here today has been experimenting by provisioning servers in the cloud for like doing management software and being able to do that very quick. And I was amazed by the ability and the speed that we can provision a server in the cloud, and then being able to pull data from the on-premise offerings and being able to do correlation in the sky and everything. It's amazing. Now, standards seems to come up. Whenever a new technology evolution starts to occur, the standard word comes up a lot. And I know we've talked about this before, but like, what is your thinking on that, and what is the importance of standards in this new world? Because there's so many different things out there that people are going to start doing in the cloud. So what's your thinking there, Steve?
I guess we've already got them, right? That's TCP/IP, HTTP, and HTML.
So we're done.
We're done.
Okay.
That's it.
Next question.
Next question. I think in many cases, the people who ask questions like that are thinking in the back of their mind, okay, I have this workload. I've been doing it in-house. I want to move it into some cloud. That's great. Here's a mechanism for moving it into the cloud. And then I decide I don't like that anymore. I want to go to a different cloud vendor, so I need some mechanism for moving that out of that cloud and into another one. At the same time, in some cases, and all of us in here have been involved in either producing or consuming technology, and we understand that the pace of innovation is never going to slow down. One of the things that attracted me to Amazon, to work for Amazon Web Services, was the sheer rate of innovation in the organization and how rapid new products and features are just coming out. That's an extremely exciting thing to be working on. And you have to balance that desire to innovate for what customers want, as well as what they may not have thought, versus what's a standard going to do? Is it going to hobble innovation? Is it going to make things actually a little bit more difficult to do that? So my view of this, I guess probably I'm speaking a little bit more personal than anything else, is that as long as there's an easily documented mechanism for moving data in and for moving data out, that's what really is what's going to solve the problem. I'm not a fan of lock-in. If somebody loves Amazon, great. Use it as much as you want. But if you decide you need to move on to something else, then as long as there's a mechanism for easily exfiltrating that and moving on to another one, I think that's sufficient.
Excellent. Did you hear anything in your survey results, Larry, that was standards mentioned at all in the results?
Yeah, I mean, we basically see the S word, standards. Standards basically apply to just about every aspect of security.
Yeah.
And in the cloud computing domain, and I agree completely with Steve, is that there's a lot of innovation that still needs to be done. Mm-hmm. And if you basically lock into a set of standards too early, you could actually diminish innovation. So we have to be careful because this is a new domain, right? And we want to make it as efficient and effective and as positive an experience as possible. But we also need to think about the security issues. There are generally accepted standards that basically transfer very nicely to the cloud domain, but I also agree that over time, as it becomes more mature, we'll need to see standards. But maybe now is not the right time.
Well, right now, speed is what I think people are after and taking advantage of these services quickly. Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see a year from now, maybe we'll have the same panel, and we'll see how that debate comes out with standards. Because there's a lot of different bodies like the Cloud Security Alliance and a lot of different groups that are, I think, helping drive the thought leadership on this. And I think it's going to be a lot in parallel going on with what all the people do in providing the services.
Yeah. So Dave, I can comment on that. Steve, I totally agree with that point that it's an easy in, easy out. Not as much as the standards are really important. Yeah. But I speak a lot on this topic with different customers, and when we're doing a threat model, the risk is if say a provider went away. Right. How do you mitigate that? Well, you have an easy in and easy out. So that becomes extremely important. So when you're analyzing cloud providers, I would worry more about the easy in and easy out than if it's a specific standard.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah, I agree as well, because I think that what you're going to see is CIOs are going to want to be able to evaluate multiple different vendors doing the similar things, and they want to be able to move their workload, and they're going to want to be negotiating for those types of services. So speed and ability to enter and exit, I think, is going to be one of the key drivers of that.
And I just have something a second ago. I was at another conference a few weeks ago, and one of the presenters gave an example of how, with the existing technology now, he was just performing some raw compute and storage on Amazon's cloud, would move that over to Azure for some table analysis in the Azure tables, which would then move to Salesforce.com for processing, and then finally was displayed on a Facebook page. So it's already, we're already starting to see integration of all of the clouds out there now. And largely it happens because we have TCP, HTTP, and HTML.
Those standards again.
Yeah.
So Larry, in some of your research, does it point out what you think might be the security services that people will be looking for first?
Yeah, in just listening to the folks in our audience and attending to this conference and other conferences, it seems that issues around access governance, identity, authentication, federation, things that basically help you to determine whether someone is a legitimate or not a legitimate player. The player could be an end user, it could be an organization. I think that, to me, that is probably going to be the most important areas of security. Now, other issues do transfer, or areas of security seem to transfer, like, for example, encryption. End-to-end encryption is probably going to be just as important.
Right.
I'm not sure, maybe some DLP will transfer, maybe there'll be new technologies, but it seems like the issue is mostly around authentication, identity, and probably access governance more generally.
Excellent. Well, you're the identity guru down there, Tim. Is that a fair statement? Like, you guys are obviously, you have a service today, so.
I think it is, but that's why we're so focused on identity is because it's evolving. And whether it's mobile or just the traditional way we've done it, I think to have people think, what's the proper way to think about identity? It's when people aren't present, and it doesn't have to do so much with the technical architecture. It's, is Steve Tim or is Tim Steve when I'm trying to commit fraud or do a bad thing or really misrepresent myself. And I think it's a continuing, evolving thing, and we've studied different paradigms of identity, and we're already touching points where we think we can capture with consumers' consent the intent of which they're acting. And it's a fascinating area, but I do agree. I think federated authentication is something we'll see here definitely in the next year. Where you can authenticate or verify the accuracy of data that was provided to you in real time up in the cloud.
Right. And we see the same things, is that